Okay, let's dive right in. We're looking at something really pressing today.
Yeah, the global mental health challenge.
Yeah.
It's huge.
It really is. I mean, the numbers are just staggering, right? Hundreds of millions worldwide dealing with mental health issues.
And the big problem is there just aren't enough qualified professionals. Not nearly enough.
Exactly. So this gap, well, it means millions are turning to, online peer support platforms, places like TalkLife.
Which are vital resources, absolutely. People connecting, sharing experiences.
But it's tough, isn't it? Trying to provide real support, real empathy just through text, especially if you're, well, an untrained volunteer.
Oh, definitely. That's a massive hurdle. Think about everything you lose without tone of voice, body language.
Nuances.
Yeah, and empathy is so critical here. I mean, research just shows again and again it's linked to better outcomes, building that connection.
Right.
But expressing that complex skill in a typed message, that's hard. And the source material we're looking at today really highlights how peer supporters struggle with exactly that.
They have the heart, the compassion, but getting it into words.
Precisely. And it's not just about the quality of support, though that's huge. It can lead to burnout for the supporters themselves,
Yeah.
Empathy fatigue.
That makes sense. And the scale. You mentioned millions. How do you train millions of people in empathy skills?
Well, you can't. Not with traditional methods anyway. It's just not scalable. And that's why we need something new, a different approach.
Which brings us neatly to this deep dive. We're digging into a really significant study published in Nature Machine Intelligence.
That's right. By Sharma, Lin, Miner, Atkins, and Althoff. It tackles this exact problem head on.
And the big question they ask is, can AI help?
Oh.
But not in the way you might first think, right? Not replacing human.
No, absolutely not. It's about collaboration. Can AI work with human peer supporters to make those online chats more empathic?
So they developed this system, HAILEY.
HAILEY, yes. It's designed as an AI-in-the-loop agent. Its whole job is to help the human supporter express empathy better. And that collaborative design, that's a real academic innovation here.
Okay, so that's our mission today. Unpack this study. We'll look at HAILEY's design, how they tested it rigorously, I understand, and what the results actually mean for maybe augmenting human skills with AI.
Yeah, especially in such a sensitive area like mental health. There are some genuinely fascinating findings here.
Before we get into the tech itself, maybe just pause on that point about why empathy is so crucial again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's foundational, really. When someone's reaching out, feeling distressed, that sense of being truly heard, understood, validated, it's incredibly powerful.
It's what makes the connection meaningful.
Exactly. And the clinical literature backs this up. Expressed empathy from the supporter is consistently linked to positive change for the person seeking help.
But getting that across in text, that's the bottleneck.
It really is. You lose all those nonverbal cues. And like you said, these are often volunteers, right? They might not have formal training in, therapeutic communication techniques.
They want to help, they feel it, but writing it effectively, that's a specific skill.
Totally. The study mentions that untrained supporters often report finding it genuinely difficult to write those really supportive, empathic messages. It's a persistent challenge.
And then you add the emotional toll, the potential for empathy fatigue.
Right. And then layer the scale back on. Millions of users, millions of potential supporters. Traditional training just won't cut it.
So massive need, scalable platform, but this pinch point around the quality of the actual human interaction.
Precisely. Which leads us to HAILEY. And I think the design philosophy here is a really important academic point.
Okay.
Instead of building an AI to be the empathic chatbot, generating responses all by itself.
Which seems like the obvious first thought for some AI applications.
Maybe, but not here. They built an AI-in-the-loop system. The human stays central. The AI assists. And that's a critical choice, especially in mental health.
Why is keeping the human in the loop so vital in this context?
Well, safety is number one. Authenticity, too. And human agency. You need human oversight. An AI going rogue, misunderstanding context, sounding fake.
Or worse, saying something harmful.
Exactly. That's just not acceptable. By keeping the peer supporter in charge, they review everything. They edit, they approve, the AI suggests, the human decides. It maintains that crucial human connection. Responsibility stays with the human.
Got it. So it's really about amplifying the human supporter. Okay, practically then, how does it work? If I'm a peer supporter using HAILEY, what do I actually see?
It's designed to be pretty subtle, just-in-time help. So you're typing your response to someone's post. HAILEY is kind of looking over your shoulder, digitally speaking. It analyzes the conversation. If it spots a chance to maybe boost the empathy,
It jumps in.
gently. A little prompt appears above your text box. Something simple like, would you like some help with your response?
Okay, so it waits for you to start, then offers help. What happens if you click yes?
Then it gives you concrete suggestions. The researchers talk about two main types. There are insert suggestions.
It's like adding a whole sentence.
Yeah, suggesting a specific sentence to add that could make it more empathic. And then replace suggestions.
Swapping out a phrase.
Exactly. Swapping out maybe a less empathic part of your draft for something better.
So it's not just saying be more empathic, it's actionable. It's like, try adding this, or how about phrasing it like this instead? That seems really useful.
It is. It provides these specific edits. And the engine generating these suggestions, that's another really key innovation here. The partner model.
Partner. Okay, tell me about that. What's under the hood?
So partner stands for, let me get this right, empathic rewriting in mental health support.
Catchy acronym.
It is. And technically, it's a deep reinforcement learning model. It's specifically trained for this task.
Which is?
Its goal is pretty sophisticated. It learns to make sentence-level edits, insertions, or replacements that do two things: increase the empathy score of the response and maintain the overall quality and flow of the conversation.
So it has to understand context and coherence, not just stick empathic words in randomly.
Exactly. It's trained on tons of data to grasp the nuances of empathic language in this specific online support context and figure out how to weave it in naturally. That ability to generate context-aware, nuanced edits, that's a core technical achievement.
And the supporter doesn't have to accept the suggestion as is, right?
Oh, absolutely not. That's crucial for agency and authenticity. You have full control. Click to accept, sure. But you can also edit the suggestion first.
Make it sound more like you.
Right. Or just use it for inspiration, ignore it completely, or even hit reload to see if it has other ideas. That flexibility is key. It ensures the final message still feels genuine coming from the supporter.
Okay, so that's the system. Really smart collaborative design. But the million-dollar question, did it actually work? How did they test HAILEY?
Right, the evaluation. They went for the gold standard, a randomized controlled trial, an RCT.
Okay.
They recruited 300 actual peer supporters from TalkLife.
Right.
Real users doing real support.
That's important, not just in a lab.
Exactly. So they randomly split them. One group got HAILEY, the human plus AI group. The other was the control group, human only.
Standard comparison.
Yes, but here's a really interesting detail the study emphasizes. Both groups got some basic empathy training before the trial started.
Both groups. Why is that significant?
Because it makes the test harder for HAILEY. It means the study likely gives us a conservative estimate of its effect.
Oh, so?
Well, in the real world, most peer supporters don't get formal training, right? So by giving even basic training to the control group, they raise the baseline empathy level of the human-only responses.
Ah, so if HAILEY still shows improvement over that trained group,
then its impact on totally untrained users out there could be even bigger. It makes the findings more convincing, more robust.
clever. Okay, so they have the group set up. How did they measure empathy? How do you score that?
They used a couple of methods. First, human evaluation. They got independent folks, experienced supporters, even people who seek support on TalkLife, to read pairs of responses to the same post, one from the HAILEY group, one from the control group, blindly, of course.
And ask which one felt more empathic.
Yep. Or if they were about the same. This gets at that direct user perception.
Crucial to get that perspective. What else?
Second, automatic evaluation. They used an AI model one they'd validated in previous research, specifically trained to score text for expressed empathy. It gives a score on a 0 to 6 scale.
So a more standardized, objective measure you can apply consistently across thousands of responses.
Exactly. More scalable for large data sets.
And the researchers are careful to distinguish between expressed empathy, what's written, and perceived empathy, how the seeker felt, right?
Yes, they acknowledge that. Getting feedback directly from potentially vulnerable support seekers is ethically tricky.
Understandably.
But they also point to other research showing that what therapists express in terms of empathy strongly correlates with good outcomes for patients. So measuring expressed empathy is seen as a valid and ethical proxy here.
Okay, that makes sense. So the results. Drumroll, please. Did HAILEY make a difference?
It absolutely did. The headline finding, using that automatic 0 to 6 scale, human-AI collaboration with HAILEY led to a 19.6% increase in conversational empathy overall.
Wow, nearly 20% higher empathy scores just by having HAILEY assist. That's substantial.
It really is. The average score went from 1.48 for human-only responses up to 1.77 with HAILEY's help.
And did the human judges agree?
They did. Their preferences were statistically significant.
Okay.
They preferred the Haley-assisted responses 46.8% of the time versus 37.4% for the human-only ones. The rest were rated equal. So both measures point the same way.
Okay, that's the average improvement. But you mentioned something earlier. There was a finding in there that was even more striking.
Yes. This is where it gets really interesting, I think. This really highlights the potential. They looked at subgroups. Remember how we said this was a conservative test because both groups got training?
Right.
Well, they looked specifically at the participants who said they struggled the most, who self-reported finding it difficult to provide support. For those individuals, HAILEY didn't just nudge the scores up a bit. It led to a massive 38.9% increase in empathy, almost 40%.
Wait, nearly a 40% jump for the people who found it hardest to begin with. That's huge.
It's incredible, isn't it? Their scores went from about 1.25 without AI up to 1.74 with it. It suggests the system is most effective exactly where the need is greatest.
So it's not just making good supporters slightly better, it's significantly lifting up those who are finding it challenging.
Precisely. And that group likely represents a large chunk of the untrained volunteer base on these platforms. They saw a similar, though slightly smaller boost, about a 21% higher increase for people with no prior peer support experience too.
This really drives home that idea of AI as an augmentation tool for scaling quality support. It helps the people who need the help most to improve.
Exactly. It offers a real path to improving support quality across the board, especially from those without formal training.
Beyond just the scores, did they look at how people actually used HAILEY? The collaboration itself?
They did, yeah. Which is another neat academic contribution, understanding how this human-AI interaction actually plays out in practice. They wanted to know, for instance, did people just blindly accept everything?
Did they become overly reliant?
Right. And the answer was no. Very few people, only about 2.6%, always use the AI suggestions. Usage patterns varied a lot.
So people weren't just outsourcing their empathy to the machine?
Not at all. The most common pattern, about 65% of the time when they consulted it, was to use the suggestion directly. But almost 20% used it indirectly, took inspiration, then rewrote it themselves.
Interesting. So using it as a prompt or a guide.
Yeah. And about 17% looked at the suggestion but didn't use it, maybe feeling their own version was better or the suggestion didn't quite fit. It shows people were actively engaging with it, not just passively accepting.
And did using it more correlate with better empathy scores?
Generally, yes. The automatic scores show that people who consulted and used HAILEY more often tended to express higher levels of empathy. Those who never consulted it had the lowest scores on average.
Suggesting that engaging with the tool, however you did it, was beneficial.
It seems so.
Now, there was also something about benefits for the supporters themselves, beyond just improving their messages.
Yes, this was another really positive finding, what they called secondary gains. It turns out using HAILEY didn't just help the support seekers, it helped the supporters too. Almost 70%, 69.8% to be exact, reported feeling more confident in providing support after using the system.
Wow, increased confidence. That's huge for keeping volunteers engaged and motivated.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the researchers had a fascinating hypothesis about why. They suggested that interacting with HAILEY, especially maybe using that reload button to see different suggestions, actually functioned as a kind of embedded learning experience, like multiple example learning, right there in the workflow.
So the AI wasn't just helping with the task at hand, it was subtly training them over time.
That's the idea. People reported getting insights, noticing patterns, finding the suggestions helpful, even just as a starting point when they felt stuck.
That's powerful. The tool itself becomes a continuous, scalable training mechanism.
Exactly. Improving the output and building the user's capability. It's a really neat potential benefit.
Of course, with anything in mental health, safety and ethics have to be front and center. How did they address that?
Very carefully, it seems. The core safety feature is that human-in-the-loop design itself. The AI only talks to the supporter, never directly to the seeker. Human judgment is always the final step.
Assisting the supporter who's less vulnerable?
Precisely. They also had strict content filtering. Any posts mentioning things like suicide or self-harm were flagged and routed for professional help, not processed by HAILEY.
Okay, crucial filters.
Same for the suggestions HAILEY generated filtered for safety, and users had a flag button to report anything inappropriate, plus all the data was anonymized. It looks like a really layered approach to safety.
Good to hear. Now, no study is perfect. What limitations did the authors themselves point out?
They were quite thorough. One point was that empathy isn't the only thing needed, right? Sometimes problem-solving or other types of support are more appropriate, and HAILEY was focused just on empathy.
True. Support is complex.
They also mentioned that some users were a bit hesitant to use the system, or felt the suggestions weren't personalized enough, or missed the context sometimes.
Suggesting room for improvement in personalization.
Definitely. Tailoring it more to the user or the situation could be next steps. And again, they noted the expressed versus perceived empathy distinction. Plus, the study was done on one platform, TalkLife, and only in English. So testing and adapting it for different cultures and languages is important for broader impact. And finally, they only tested this specific interface design. Maybe other ways of presenting suggestions could work better.
So clear potential, but also clear directions for future work.
Absolutely. It's a strong foundation, but there's lots more to explore.
So bringing this all together, what we have here is this study in Nature Machine Intelligence providing really compelling evidence. It shows AI can successfully augment a complex core human skill like empathy.
Yeah, and in a really critical area, online mental health support. The collaborative AI in the loop design, the partner model doing those smart edits, the significant empathy gains, especially for those who struggle, it all points to a powerful new approach.
And the implications feel huge. If this kind of human-AI teamwork can boost the quality of peer support globally,
It could genuinely help address that massive gap between mental health needs and available resources. Not by replacing therapists, let's be clear, but by making the millions of peer supporters out there more effective, more confident.
exactly. And it makes you wonder about other fields, doesn't it? Where else could this model apply? Other areas of healthcare, education, managing online discussions. Anywhere nuanced communication is key.
It really does offer a blueprint, maybe, for designing AI, not just to automate tasks, but to actively help us get better at being human, at connecting with each other.
So maybe here's the thought to leave everyone with today. This research suggests AI's biggest impact might not come from trying to replicate human qualities like empathy, but from building smart tools that help us enhance our own human skills, tools that make us more effective, more understanding, more connected.
Like HAILEY seems to do for empathy.
Right, so what other crucial human skills, maybe ones that are hard to teach at scale or just inherently difficult, could be boosted by this kind of smart collaborative AI? What could that future look like? Lots to think about there.